Hello, I'm Dr. Lisa Templeton, and welcome to the free webinar on being a compassionate friend to yourself. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm going to talk here for about, I don't know, 25 minutes, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. You can see in your browser, hopefully, a little chat area. So if you have any questions, even while I'm talking here, feel free to just type it in, and I will definitely address it toward the end. Um, so you're here. Welcome. Happy Saturday. And I'd like us all to take a deep breath and just ground. As we're hearing these words, as we're going to be talking together today, and just taking in information to guide you, to help you on your journey to more integration, more wholeness within yourself. To ground in your body. It's so important to be connected to our body because our body and mind are very connected, but they don't seem like it in our very busy day-to-day lives. It's very easy to be focused very much on the mind and thoughts instead of mind and body. The body has a lot of wisdom to offer. Notice your feet on the floor, or if you're laying down, your feet on the bed or wherever you're laying. Take a deep breath and just ground into the earth, feeling that connection grounding you as you're taking this information in and learning. Wonderful. So, the first point I really want to make about being a compassionate friend to yourself is there is no enemy within us. Yet it sure feels like it, doesn't it? Um, we have these negative thoughts, like the negative kind of, maybe you're not good enough, or I don't know. And the comparing piece, our mind goes in so many different directions. And there's a polarization that goes along with that. The polarization is an illusion. We are not an enemy to ourselves. We are just socialized, potentially in our culture, potentially from family members, different experiences that we've had as young children that create a separation. And this separation, it's the age old battle, the victim and the bully, id and the ego, the mind and the body, the emotion and logic, these separate kinds of things that bring us into a feeling of separation. And the separation doesn't feel good. I know no one feels good with the separation. And how to integrate? How do we bridge some of this? And obviously, first, we need to notice this negative voice in our mind. It's so much easier to, the negative ninny is there, like push it away, get away from me, you meanie. and, um, and really, this part of ourselves is not there to hurt us. It sure feels like it when it's saying kind of mean things like, oh, if you eat that donut, you're going to be fat, however it comes out in your mind, that, negative voice. But I wanted to share with you all a dream I had, that really, man, it was so powerful. And I don't have these kinds of really intense dreams often. And I was called to share this with you all. So in the dream, it's very intricate and very long and drawn out. I'm going to shorten it up. In the dream, I'm at a beautiful hotel with some friends of mine, and we're checking in. I'm feeling very joyful and happy. And there's this beautiful garden right behind us, and we're in this kind of atrium checking in area. And I hear suddenly gunshots, which of course is, very alarming, especially in America. And having any kind of gunshots happen, it's, run, hit the floor, which is exactly what I did in the dream. We all ran in separate directions. I ran to, interestingly, a slide area, and I was hiding underneath, and I could see the shooter walking by with a gun. Very scary. Phew, and I was continued to try to get away. I ended up finding a hallway and getting into this room, hiding under a bed. The shooter was right at the window and I believe saw me. I look at the shooter, I breathe, I'm like, oh my gosh, please don't hurt me. And I realize there's a familiarity to this shooter. And I look and I see that, gosh, this shooter looks and has the makeup of myself. And I say, please take off your mask. The shooter takes off the mask. It is me. It was me. And so what I realized, and then of course, I just had this heartfelt compassion. I was like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? And the shooter's like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. And suddenly I'm outside holding the shooter. The gun is on the ground and we're embracing. And I realized, poof, when I woke up from that dream, I realized, wow, this negative part of me is scaring the hell out of me, but it doesn't want to hurt me. It wants to somehow, in this convoluted way, protect me. And when I was able to shift my perspective, because everything, in our mindset, in our perception of life, it's all about the way we perceive things, the meaning that we give to what we see in the world and how we interpret it. So to be actually that shift for me really shifted or changed my perception of this part of myself that I was struggling to connect with. And always feeling like, oh, I had to push it away because it's like, oh, you're negative again. I don't want to hang out with you. And it's so easy to just, these like negative parts. And really, I think of it as the shadow self, and or the ego. A lot of people talk about it as the ego. And how do we tame this? How do we understand it in a different way so that we can relate to it? I mean, I don't think personally that I want to turn away from my shadow and not look at it, not know it, not understand it, because all of us have had very difficult experiences in our lives. And some of those difficult experiences, very traumatic experiences, have led to these separate selves. And how do we heal this? And certainly, the first inclination when there's negativity is to get out, get away, and move on. Stay positive, move to the positive, right? And really, when there's wholeness, there is an understanding of the whole, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark. And certainly, our dark is tough to look at. It's tough to accept about ourselves. Right? We don't want this part of ourselves, so we try to push it down. But if we consider what this other part of ourselves might feel, it doesn't feel good to be pushed down. It doesn't feel good to not be acknowledged. And so, what would it be like to just lean in and acknowledge a little bit, listen? And this is where our observer comes in. And certainly, just paying attention in a mindful way. I'm sure you all have heard of the term mindfulness and how mindfulness is defined. John Kabat-Zinn is a gentleman, and uh, psychiatrist. I think he's a psychiatrist who coined the term. He said, mindfulness is about being in the present moment on purpose without judgment. So, in a mindful state, we are taking it in, we are noticing on purpose. What is it? What am I saying here? What are the words? What am I saying to myself? Because we are all dialoguing with ourselves every day, right? There's a dialogue, and it's like, oh, it's crazy to talk to yourself. No, it really isn't. We're talking to ourselves all the time. Can we just listen in to see what those different sides are saying? It feels really good for this shadow self, this negative self, to be heard. And what's interesting, with I mentioned logic and emotion, I find sometimes that my shadow self often is coming from a very emotional place, very irrational, very like, no one likes you, or, you're not good enough, this isn't going to work for you, or, you'll never be happy, whatever it's saying, it's coming from this place of number one, fear. And number two, it's coming from a place of trying to be heard and seen so that we can understand, oh, wait, what do I need? Because to be a compassionate friend to yourself, we have to care, right? We have to care for ourselves. And even when friends are negative or having a hard time, we're not going to bring a net, we're not going to push them out or not enough. I don't have time for this. We're going to do our best to provide some support, some encouragement, right? A little bit of love. When we're talking about all this, issues in the world, war and conflict, and just it's very intense right now. The energy is immense, and it's interesting because I think of it as, this conflict that we have within ourselves that is often socialized. I know for sure in American culture that polarization within oneself is socialized and conditioned. I'm not sure, the underlying ways that that is all going on. We have to be aware and challenge some of this stuff. What are we really thinking about ourselves, especially? And how can we think or shift some of those thoughts to be a little more kinder? We always say, oh, we need to care for people in the world. We need to offer love and support, and we need to hold and uplift people. If we're not doing that with ourselves, how are we going to do that in the world? It's impossible. So when we focus within, we begin to understand how we can really do that in a completely authentic way. The wholeness is there, and then we give, and then we offer help and care and kindness to someone else because we all matter. It's funny because there's so many people in the world. It's like equality, we're all equal, that there should be equal rights for all. And I see this in so many people feeling this way about others and standing up for, the LGBTQ community, the people of color community, and coming around and then not feeling their own worth. And we all have worth. I don't care what you've done, how you've done it, how it's been said, the guilt you may have, the shame of it all, you still have worth. And it's funny, I love the story, of a professor that offers a $20 bill to his class. Says, "Hey, I have this $20 bill, everyone. Who wants it?" And everybody's like, "Yes, I'll take it." Everyone raises their hand, of course. And then he takes the $20 bill and he beats on it and he kicks it and he talks a bunch of stuff. You suck, and you're a horrible $20 bill. Yeah." And then it's ripped, it's torn, it's broken, it's hurting. And he says, "Does anyone want this $20 bill still?" And sure enough, everybody raises their hand. Interestingly enough, the $20 bill is a metaphor for us all. Just because we've been hurt, just because we've been ignored, just because we've been, told or unconsciously messaged that, we're not good enough, we're not special, we're not important, whatever that is, it doesn't mean anything. We are not going to give our power to someone else that holds that power for us and tells us who we are. We know who we are. We are made in the wholeness and likeness of the divine, of a great energy that is defined in many, many ways and throughout various religions and spiritualities. We are bigger than what we are telling ourselves and what we're socialized and conditioned to believe about ourselves. And when we take that power back, is intense, because wholeness feels good. And I am the only person I've got my entire life that I know is going to be here until I die, of course. Uh, this is it. You are the only person you've got. And so when you've got your own back, it's a whole different game. It's not even a game, it's life. And it feels good. It's life from a whole integrated perspective. And certainly, I mean, what integration, full integration really means, that's a whole other thing. Is that enlightenment potentially? I still feel the separate parts of myself and I still need to dialogue with them in a positive way. And I need to talk sense into, especially some of my younger selves. It's funny to think about, um, ourselves, uh, you know, because when trauma hits, it can really stay stuck in the body. And we hold all of our emotions in the body. That's where emotions lie. Thoughts are in the mind, emotions are in the body. And so emotions can get stuck. A lot of people put their emotions in their stomach, they just stick them in there. Some people will put their emotions, in their back or in their shoulders. Just be able to breathe and know that the way that those emotions are being created has a lot to do with the meaning that we're giving our thoughts and how we're dialoguing with ourselves. And you can change anything you find. But how can you change something that you don't have awareness of? Can you let go of something you don't even have in your hand? So we want to be able to hold this shadow self, this negative part, and potentially this negative part is a younger part of ourselves that when trauma hit, let's say 7 or 8 years old, trauma hits, and then all of a sudden there's a voice that's 7 or 8 years old that doesn't have a developed brain, doesn't have a developed frontal lobe or understanding of logic and needs our help. So bringing that logic and staying objective, of course, is like, oh, what is she saying? Like, I have no friends and nobody likes me. Wait, what? Uh, Hold on a second. Being able to take that step back and understand that, wait, that's not true, sweetie, honey. I mean, I will talk very kindly to this child like self within. And I might even hold her. What did she need when she was a child that she may not have gotten? Every parent does their best, but all of our parents may not have done everything that they needed to. But I have a parent inside of me, and I can certainly bring that awareness of this inner parent to a child that is hurting. And if we see this like rah, 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 negative part of ourselves as this child, it's a whole different perspective. And what we're looking for here is a perspective shift. We want to shift out and understand the whole, even if it's troubling. And I want to talk about, you know, just a few obstacles that we definitely run into with this, and then be able to stop and talk, allow for questions if there are any. So, the first obstacle is, I believe, pride versus humility. A lot of times, the idea of being a friend to oneself or loving oneself is like, oh, well, I don't want to come off arrogant. I don't want to come off as this prideful, person that's like, oh, I love myself and I'm great. Um, so there's this balance between humility, which is the Latin for humilis, which really is about grounding. And it's been known to be defined as to lower oneself, which I think a lot of people have misinterpreted to like grind yourself into the ground kind of a thing. And a lot of times, this depression, we feel like we're pressing ourselves down with this negative self. And I do think it has a lot to do with the depression, the anxiety going on in the world. When we press ourselves down, and a lot of people are doing that in order to be humble. I want to be humble. So I'll press myself down, and that way I'll, check any, ego that might come out and be some arrogant, prideful person. I'm not going to be that. I'll just grind myself down. So I want to look at humility from a different perspective. It is also seen as to ground. And, it's a very different thing to lower oneself down versus to ground, but they are very similar, right? So to ground down into, your body, into your connections, there's a humility to that because what I feel, and again, I'm connected to something bigger than myself, whether it be, some sort of divine entity, or, you can call it God or love, or, the universe. I don't care what you call it. Believing in something that is bigger. My heart is beating right now. I have no idea how. I mean, something is beyond my recognition here. So even just bowing to that and understanding that, you know my humility is relating to understanding my light. I want to shine my light out. I don't want to dim my light down so that others are feeling more comfortable. So how do I stay grounded in who I am and also check my ego, in understanding my light and how bright it can be. All of our lights and how bright it can be. We're all a certain vibration that is the mass beauty of this beautiful synchronistic orchestra. Everybody has a part. And so, if we're all shining our light, oh, it's beautiful. There's plenty of room in the garden for everybody. And I think the key piece to checking, my pride, my arrogance, my ego, like, oh, look at me and my light, um, is understanding that it doesn't really come from me. It comes from beyond me. And, the term namaste. The light in me honors and acknowledges the light in you. And I would, even add, can you namaste yourself? Can you see the light in your negative self, the ego, the shadow self? Because the reality is that when we shine light in those dark areas, what do we have? More light, right? And so, but when we shy away and we don't look there, what do we have? We have more darkness. It's all in how and where and the focus of the light that we're shining. So, being able to understand that, it is okay to be a friend to yourself. It is okay to take time for yourself. Because, of course, this whole self love versus selfishness, this is another obstacle that I think is closely related here. But this idea that, oh, it's selfish to take time for myself. It's selfish for me to do something that is not, for someone else. And you've got to learn how to fill our cup. What do I need? And I often ask myself that question, and whoever's answering or listening is in there. I'm listening. I am like, what do you need? And I take a deep breath. What do you need? Sometimes I don't have an answer, and that's okay. I'm just listening because what it comes down to is that we all want to be acknowledged. We all want to be heard. We all just want to be seen. If we can see ourselves, acknowledge ourselves, love ourselves in that way, our cup will be so filled that we can offer to others as needed anytime. And it's a reciprocal, just like the reciprocality of nature, this giving and receiving and giving and receiving. And oftentimes, because of the shadow self and we're pushing away and we're not worthy and all this stuff, we struggle with receiving. It's totally understandable. And so this leads me to the third obstacle, which is an understanding that self love and being a friend to ourselves, if we've never done it before, it's going to feel what some people say fake. It's like, I feel like I'm being so fake. Like, oh, hey, what do you need? Oh, okay. Like, love you. It's like, this feels so awkward. Yes, it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel foreign. uh, that's okay. Knowing that, normalizing it, it's like, this feels strange. I'm not used to receiving this. How do I even take this in? And what I have noticed, because, for me, I struggled a lot with, I had some back issues in the past and, with pain. And of course, pain is a doozy in terms of self care and self love and being a friend to yourself, especially when you're in pain. I got very negative with myself, like, oh, you stupid body, you're not working for me. And, there's all kinds of negativity that was going on. And that led for years, this was in my 20s, it led for years into this kind of, and I also had just kind of a relationship that wasn't as emotionally supportive around my body as it could have been. It was actually the opposite. And so a lot of those, statements rolling in my head. And then it was like, oh gosh, I'm just, oh, my body. And then I couldn't be as active, because my back was injured. And so it took me 10, really 13 years to work through because I gained uh, quite a bit of weight and I felt very fat. I felt big. I felt unworthy. So many, negative emotions that were going on around that. And, I remember one specific day that I was walking and I was learning about cognitive behavioral therapy, which as you know, I'm a psychologist and I do a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. And I was thinking about how do my thoughts affect my feelings and affect my behaviors. And like, oh, listen, I think my thoughts are good. No problem. I'm just walking along. And I see myself in this mirror and I heard these distinct words, what a fat pig. And I was talking to myself. I was like, oh my God. I was totally baffled and completely taken aback that I had said that to myself. I had no idea that I said that I believe now that I was saying that often, but it was not in my conscious awareness until I set the intention to, well, what's going on in there? Let's listen. Whew, that was a wake up call. I realized then, oh my gosh, well, no wonder I can't lose weight. There's no way you can lose any kind of weight when you're talking to yourself that way. Because it was just a vicious cycle of, oh, I can't do this and da da da, and maybe I would do it, and then I'd cave and have something, have pasta or whatever, and then I'd be like, you didn't do it right, and it was just this vicious cycle every single day. It was going on, and I started noticing it more and more, and I was like, stop. We cannot do this anymore. I love you. This is not fair to yourself. Let's lose weight from the inside out. We got to do this. And I did. And I worked on, saying more positive things. That was very, very important for me to be able to do that in order to make changes with my thoughts, how I was feeling about myself, and my behaviors, right? So, being able to work on understanding, that it's not selfish to care for yourself. It's not selfish to be taking the time to go within here to look at this. It's important. It's super valuable in our lives. And how can we take this extra time to do this, right? So, instead of ignoring, I want you to just listen. So I have said a lot. And of course, I have lots more to say. I could talk for a long time about this. I wonder if there's anyone out there that has any questions. If you do, I would love for you to chat me and just let me know if any questions are coming up for you. And, as they come, we'll address it. And if not, that's okay too. I have plenty to talk about in the following minutes of this webinar. I just want to, again, thank you for being here. I'm very grateful for the work that you're doing because obviously, if you're here and you're listening, you care and you want to shift, you want to change. And that is incredibly important in the work that we're doing in the world, and incredibly important in the work you're doing with yourself and in your close relationships with loved ones. So, I wanted to talk about the pressing down piece. I think a lot of people are very reticent, I will say, about stepping back and letting go of self criticism. And I think for a couple of reasons. One is that we have been socialized, and this is in America. I can't speak for other countries. And maybe, if you have things to share, if you are in another country, because I know there's a lot of people from various places all around the world here. Um, if there's something different, let me know. But we are socialized in America to believe that our self criticism is going to somehow motivate us. So, how is this motivating us again? It's this drill sergeant mentality, like go, go, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, but not in that supportive, encouraging kind of way. It's like you suck, so you better get doing it. It's like that's no fair. Do we do this with our kids? No, nobody does that with their kids and feels good about it. And tons of research have been done. Kids are feeling best when they are loved, when they are given support. And so being able to understand that if you step back from the self criticism, there's still areas of motivation that will occur. Actually, if you think of a kid and like the research that has been shown, the kids that are given, positive support, encouragement, love, they come around and do much better in their self-esteem, are able to, come into, better jobs that just in general, a wholeness and a well-being in their lives. um, the kids who are criticized, not so much. There's a low level of self-esteem, a high level of depression, anxiety, overwhelm, mental health problems that may occur. It's just not healthy. And so, how are we depressing ourselves down? And how are we, it's like we're thinking that we're uplifting ourselves, like, I will get more motivation, suck it up, just do this, like, stay at your desk, keep working, you'll get all these things done, and then you'll feel so much better about yourself. Does it work? No. And I'm sure all of us would agree it doesn't work. And so we've got to come back around to understanding that it's love and encouragement that uplifts us. Criticism does nothing to make us feel any better. Now, how do we push ourselves? Like, because some people be like, well, I don't want to just, be a slacker, just be like, oh, self love, whatever. Like, I just won't, set any goals or push myself to do anything. No, we could set these goals and push ourselves. Look at what we're doing with our kids. It's like, hey, this is what you want to do. Okay, let's do it. Hey, look at you, kind of got, like you did, you got a little farther. You took a step. Good job. I mean, can we remind ourselves of that? I see people doing things for themselves, getting better. Because I work with people individually. Every day, and I see the progress that they're making. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do you see what you're doing? Like, oh, you're amazing. And they're like, oh, no, no, yeah, like it's nothing. Like, I'm not even really progressing that much. It's funny how we tend to negate or minimize some of the ways that we um, progress and evolve within our own selves. And we can't be doing that. We need to acknowledge, again, feels good to be acknowledged, right? So how do we acknowledge, like, you know what? I'm trying to work on my anger and somebody just made me mad and I just breathed. Huh. I didn't like lash out or react. Like, wow, that is huge. But it was like, oh well, I just this is one of those days I just didn't react or I didn't feel. It's so funny how we can just toss it off and not really understand how big that can be. Can we give ourselves a little bit of encouragement and a little bit of a reward or a verbal acknowledgement? It's like, hey, you're doing a good job. Like, you just nailed that. That one moment, it's one moment at a time, everyone, right? Each of us. I mean, I'm not perfect and I'm never going to be perfect. And the more I recognize and see that, um, the more I can allow love and allow acceptance come in. And as many of you know, or maybe don't know, I am an author as well as a psychologist. And I have published a book called Letting It Be: Mindful Lessons Toward Acceptance. And I have a chapter in the book on being a compassionate friend to yourself, amongst several other chapters, being in a certain energy to help with acceptance. And so, if you're finding that you're really struggling with acceptance and having a hard time, accepting, shadow parts of yourself, or, just accepting whatever it is, or receiving love from yourself, the book can be a very useful source. And those of you who also don't know, I am teaching classes on this book, because letting it be is not just something you're like, I'll let it be, in each moment, whatever. It's a practice. It's a constant practice. And so being able to take that step back and have tools to practice, huge. And so, I want everyone to be aware of the class that I am teaching. It's online, and it's called Actively Letting It Be. And you can go at your own pace. That's the beauty of it. And I encourage you to go at your own pace, because this is any kind of practice. You want to take time with something, right? So each month, it's about being in a certain place. And certainly, after this webinar, I want you to be working on being a compassionate friend to yourself. Like, when am I a friend and when am I not a friend? And certainly, we have to observe and be aware of when we're doing this. And mindfulness helps. We understand the obstacles. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about the body. We started this whole conversation, or well, this whole chat with me, um, in the body. And, I want us to, just take our awareness there a little bit. And this is another obstacle that I have not mentioned, or I didn't expand upon. The body is changing all the time, between aging, injuries, pain, different types of suffering, emotional suffering. The body is very difficult to work with. And we're just these spirits inside this body. We're trapped here, which it can feel like we're trapped, but we're really inhabiting. And I'm grateful every day for being here and at this time, in this place, and in this body. And even though this body is not perfect, and I've had those back problems, I've had pain, as I'm moving into changes in the female movements of my life, having migraines and headaches and different things that I really struggle with. Being able to love yourself despite those uncomfortable, difficult places. It is not easy. And those are the most difficult of the times. That's what I find. When I start to have a migraine or whatever, it's just like, everything kind of shuts down. And I'm like, oh, and, all the younger parts of myself are like, cringing. And it's like, okay. Like, it's hard to find those objective parts, which is why I think it's so important to be with our observer. That's a chapter in the book as well. Being with our observer allows for more objectivity, reminds us of the logic, reminds us this is temporary. It's always going to be shifting and changing. And so being able to just love, even though, despite the, whatever you're, missing, in your experience of your body, whether it's like you're missing pain-free, experience, or, you're struggling and you can't move like you want to, or, just all of those kinds of things. It can be very difficult, especially if it's not temporary. And I understand there's many of you going through things like that. So being able to take that step back, having that objectivity, even in the worst pain, the worst, emotional overwhelm, because those are the times that we tend to react. Even so, even if you react, can you have a little compassion for yourself? It's okay to have a moment. I mean, we're all going to have moments. Nobody here is enlightened. So it's okay. How do you love? And how do you keep loving? How do you draw on a little more love for yourself? It's a constant practice. You know, the other piece that I didn't talk too deeply about is fear. Man, going into these shadow parts is scary. What is so scary about it? It's so interesting. And I look at that, from an objective perspective, I'm practicing all this. Why am I so afraid? And, I think back to the dream. I am afraid this part of myself is going to hurt me. I am afraid this is going to, and I don't trust this part of myself. I'm afraid that it's going to take me out. It's going to take me down. People are going to see that shadow part. People are going to not like me too, just like I don't like me, right? This whole way that's structured. No, it's we have to shift our perspective in order to see it from a different way. And when we understand that there is nothing to fear here, and that's what happened in my dream. I kind of went a little bit lucid and was like, oh, wait a minute. That's me. Why am I afraid of myself? I don't need to be afraid of myself. It's me. I can change this. I have power to create whatever I want within here. What am I so afraid of? And it's funny because really, gosh, I think it's like fear of not being good enough, fear of not being seen, fear of being seen, fear of change, fear of not having change. It's like all these completely irrational kinds of things. Whereas I can just be in the moment and I can just allow life to lead me and trust that it will lead me. And obviously, there is never trust outside of myself if there's no trust in here. And, those of you who are like grappling with and all of us really are grappling with these separate kinds of selves and like some of the negative ninny that's there. I don't trust that until I've looked into its eyes and I've said, and gosh, the dream really helped with that, and which you certainly could do a practice around that. To look into the eyes of your shadow self and know there's nothing to fear. There's only love and pain and sorrow and joy and all the other emotions that are a part of a human experience, that the more that we push away from to try to get to the good, the more we're missing and the more pain we end up creating, right? So this fear, I want to, and then even fear of being in control, fear of not being in control. Oh goodness. uh, and I think that whole being in control thing, the idea of looking at your shadows is like, oh, I'm just gonna like see something that is gonna be horrible, and I'm gonna go flailing, running away, like ah. Um, no, that's not really true. What you'll find is, and this is what I found moving through the darkness, I find a rainbow. And that dark space is usually pretty scary, and I don't really know what's coming next. And of course, any uncertainty creates a lot of fear. But when we're within, geez, and we have ourselves as a friend, it's a little bit easier. It gets a little bit and a little bit and a little bit easier. It's like little steps. Because I want to talk about this as a process, not like, well, you should leave this webinar and be, feeling good and, super happy with yourself. Um, Potentially, I would love that. But Potentially no, because things are still going to come up. Moments of insecurity are going to come up. Moments of feeling not good enough. Moments of feeling out of control or feeling overwhelmed and not being able to, settle. First of all, our body is always here. Our observer is always here. And when we tap into that, our friend is always here as well. And we can bring that friend closer to us. We can bring that friend into an embrace. Even if that friend has been kind of harsh and very negative, we can still embrace that part. It's not going to feel comfortable. I mean, this is not comfortable, guys. And of course, that's okay. I mean, we're here to learn, and it never was comfortable learning new things. Trying to walk, I'm sure it was very uncomfortable and falling on my face. I don't remember it at this point in my life as well, but I understand that it was there and it was needed for me to learn. And I moved past my fear with courage, which is the only way that we can do this is with courage and love, because courage and love is what helped me move through fear. I can't do it without that. And when I take a step forward, I can give myself a little pat on the back. I took a step forward. Like, not, well, I took a step forward. That's nothing. I mean, are you going to minimize the moments that you're taking steps forward? I know you wouldn't do that with a child that's standing next to you. And I wonder, since I'm not having a lot of questions, and I love that because that means I'm being clear and articulate. I wonder if we could end with a little bit of a meditation. Um, and this is a meditation that is also in my book. Um, I'd like us to just all take a few deep breaths, again, grounding into the body, into this moment. Relaxing into your body, breathing in love, letting out whatever does not serve you. And I'd like you to imagine a younger part of yourself, a child, whatever age comes up in your mind. I'd like you to imagine this child sitting next to you, or maybe sitting on your lap, just holding them gently, lovingly, and letting them know, you're there for them. You want to listen to whatever comes up, whatever this child may say. But your intention is about listening and acknowledging and seeing this part of yourself that's needing love. And you may also see, maybe not a child self, but maybe just a dark shadow self, whatever this appears to you as. Nothing to fear. And just listening. And you may not hear anything whatsoever right now. That's okay. It's actually very normal. There's a trust that we're building here, and it comes with practice. We're building this trust with ourselves. We have to build it with ourselves first. And just setting that intention that, hey, I want to have a little more trust. I want you to trust me to be there for you. I love you. We're here together forever. And let's work on this. Let's bridge a gap. And so you're just being present, noticing any thoughts or sensations, whether it be touch, smell, whatever you're seeing, whatever you're hearing, and continuing to breathe with these separate selves in your lap or sitting next to you. They may be behind you. And gently move back, engaging with your observer, just being with and experiencing your inner child without judgment. No judgment here. Offer words of encouragement. And say things that you would love to hear from someone that you admire, that you look up to. Notice any discomfort that might come up as you're saying these positive things, encouraging, loving things. It's okay. Now, after this meditation, as we're coming back, taking a few deep breaths, going back into the moment, maybe, just using touch to, kind of touch your body, maybe give yourself a little hug. It's a little strange, but it's okay. We can be a little strange, right? So as you're moving through your day, consider the separate selves, whether it be your inner child, however you want to view it, just seeing it as something that's outside of ourselves. Think about, would I speak to someone I love in this way? What would I say to someone I love if they said this to me? Such a great filter to help us stay objective about, because we all have love in our hearts. Every single person that's on this, that's listening to this, has love in their hearts. And when we open our hearts a little bit more and a little bit more, and even just a little bit more, even more love comes in. And as we receive love, we can give more love. And so we're doing it within here, right? So honor the self, honor this separateness, and understand that the whole exists. The whole is there for you. And I know I feel it in moments, and then I come out of it. It's like a pendulum swinging. And notice that wholeness when it's there, ground it into your body. It's like, I feel good. I feel connected. Thank you. Thank you. And so use your observer. You're moving in the world, you're moving, shaking, you got chores, you got places to go, people to visit, things to do. Take a little check in. See how you're feeling. What are you saying? What, you feel a little bit insecure? What was that? What was that you're saying? Oh, honey, no, that's not true. We have got to challenge our thoughts. Don't believe everything you think, because what you think may be conditioned and it's not based on evidence. So bring in the evidence, bring in the moment, and be there for yourself. Be that compassionate friend to yourself, that you're such a good friend to everyone else. You matter just as much as everyone else, and your worth never changes, no matter what. So, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. You can go to my website, drlisatempleton.com, drlisatempleton.com. You can learn about my classes, upcoming webinars that I'll be doing. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can email me. It's Dr. Lisa Templeton at yahoo.com. And certainly would love for you to check out any of my classes. You can also buy a book. Highly encourage that, as I've been getting pretty great reviews about it. And I know it's been a very helpful thing for me, and I continue to practice it. So please reach out if you have any questions. And thank you for being here. Namaste. Have a beautiful day.